Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes, from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tanisha Wood. Tonight, I have Omar with me. So just a couple months ago, Omar, you were single and looking into possibly having a child alone via a surrogate. And now you are engaged just a couple months later. So how did that all go down?
So I'm 47. I look like I'm 30. I've been told that by a few people. But more importantly, a lot of my friends and my youngest friends had gotten to the point where they're having kids. And I knew I love kids, and I was prioritizing a lot of my travel around kids. I have a lot of god kids. And so I was like, okay, one thing is clear. I don't want to be the old dad with the youngest kid of all my friends' kids. And I got to the point where, this is about a year ago, I'm like, you want to know what? I want to have a kid. Maybe I'm not supposed to have a partner in life because I've never really dated anybody that I felt in any capacity. Well, let me rephrase that. I never really was with someone who I felt that it made sense for me to really. I was convinced that this was it. Like that movie, that Summoner moment they have, like in what's that movie with Adam
Every
Sandler?
Romantic comedy where they're like, this is it.
Well, what was the movie with Adam Sandler where he was like, he hated love and he fell in love with Drew Barrymore? The Wedding Singer.
Yes.
So I wasn't that jaded, but I was like, you want to know what? Like, the one other thing is that I have a lot of friends who are in relationships and who have been divorced. Two of my best friends are divorced and remarried very happily. But I saw what works and what doesn't. And I saw other relationships that are current, and I saw the dynamic that I wanted no part of. So couple that with, I want to have a kid, and I'll just have one of my own.
So were you going to do just adopt, or what were you planning on doing?
Yeah, no. So one of my best friends, Hill Harper, you may know who he is, but he actually adopted. He's a few years older than me. As a single guy, adopted a beautiful kid, a newborn actually. So I would talk to him about his experience with that, and I actually decided I was going to do the surrogate route with like an egg donor. So I went to fertility clinic. This is last year. I did that whole thing, and I was going through the process of picking out a specific egg donor. I decided at the time to pick a Japanese woman as an egg donor.
Why a Japanese woman? Just out of curiosity. You're an Indian man.
Yes, Pakistani, but same difference.
Okay.
Not to my parents, but yes. But yeah, so I decided to do Japanese because I initially said blonde, blue-eyed Harvard grad, and then my sister challenged me on that notion. She goes, "That's interesting that you picked what the Western ideal of beauty is." I'm like,
right.
Oh my God, and I'm very much a contrarian as I try and be. I'm like, why am I've been like brainwashed into this thinking. So I thought about it some more, and I'm like, you know what? I love Japanese, like the whole like their features and their sense of calmness. And so I got to that point.
So why not do an Indian woman?
Because it was too traditional. I was never really attracted to Indian women. I wanted to do something that was... But the thing is like, whatever nationality the egg donor was, to me, I would have still loved the baby the same. Wouldn't mattered. And in terms of like generational stuff, I've made up my life by basically going down the road that's lesser taken by my family.
Right.
And so it just felt right.
How did your family react?
My dad's thoughts were, he says, pardon me for perpetuating stereotypes here, but he goes, "Don't do it. The woman, they will take your baby. She will come and take your baby." I'm like, "Dad, who's going to take the baby? The woman, the mother will take your baby from you." I go, "No, Dad, it's legally set up, so you cannot." Like the egg donor and the surrogate are two different people.
You're like, it's my baby.
Yeah. It's actually my baby. And then my mom says to me, the mom should have a mother. The baby should have a mother. You can't do that. Like, it's not within the tenets of Islam, like, blah, blah, blah. And again, as I've sort of alluded to, I'm not traditional and I'm not religious really at all. And I'm like, okay, well, Mom, let me tell you something. I promise you that when you have a baby in your arms for me, you're gonna look at me, you're gonna say thank you. And so like the next day she comes up to me, and my mom is 82 and is a doctor and still works every day, Monday to Sunday. At 82 years old with two knee replacements. And she goes to me, when you have the baby, drop her off at my house, I will retire and come back in 3 years. And so, there was obviously a lot of, she wanted to have another grandkid. So they were okay with it eventually, because they kind of knew that I'd never really followed a lot of their advice. I kind of do my own thing. I try to have a moral compass, but at the same point, my parents were just from a different culture and different generation.
Did you think about how this would fit into your lifestyle? Like, you're a pretty busy guy. You're constantly traveling. Did you think about the realities of truly raising a child on your own, and did that scare you?
Two of my best friends both, told me their views on this stuff. And one view was that just have a kid with like one of your best friends. It's easier. Like you're an idiot. You can't do it on your own. My other friend was like, you travel way too much. You won't be able to do it. It's not just like one of your dogs. We can just have someone to come take care of them. For me, where I sort of fell was that I'll figure it out. When these things happen, for my view is that you just make it work.
Right.
Like you don't have a choice. Like it's like I don't have a choice but to be respectful towards my parents and to be there for my sisters and my friends. I don't want to. Like I think one of the biggest signs of love is that when you do things that you don't want to do.
Sacrifice.
All these cliches that in movies, this is one of the things I've realized after meeting her. They're all true.
So how did you get then from the point where you were already going to a fertility clinic, considering a surrogate, a donor, all that, to now we're in your apartment and you're engaged? Because this all happened very quickly.
I left New York for 20 years. One of the reasons why I left is that I really hadn't met anybody that I connected with. And I'm like, I just, as I often do, I fall back to Einstein.
Why do you think that was? Because you're an attractive guy, you're smart, you're successful. Why do you think it was so hard for you to meet a woman, especially in a place like New York City where they're everywhere? Like, why was that connection hard for you? Because that is often the case for people where it's like, they're great and on paper everything's good, they're great in person, but it's just that the connection piece is missing. Like, what wasn't connecting for you with the people you were meeting?
I think that a lot of it, as often is the case, starts from within. Right? That's a really big part of everything. So, New York's a very tough city. So people come there that you have to hustle, and it's a lot. And I think that you can get jaded, and I always try not to get jaded, but it's just it's a lot of sensory overload, and it's kinetic energy that everybody sort of absorbs to some extent.
For most of your time period in New York, did you actually want a serious relationship and to be married and to settle down and the whole package, or did you not want that for a certain period of time and you realized somewhere along the way, like, I do want this?
I think I wasn't ready to think about that in terms of being a realistic ideal until about 6 or 7 years ago, when I sort of began that my business I run sort of was having some amount of stability. Before then it was a mess, and I couldn't think about anything related to me having a partner on any level, because I internalized it. And I think, male or female, when you're not sort of there, professionally, you don't have I was like, I got to have that figured out first. And that was a very big thing for me. And I somehow I did figure it out.
That's how a lot of men think. Like, until I'm completely, stable and successful in my career, it's not even really a thought.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of throws off the balance with women, because typically when a woman is of childbearing age, probably let's say around late 20s, early 30s, and they're ready at that point.
Yeah.
But you might have been going out on dates and meeting people, but just mentally you weren't ready to commit on that level.
My friends, even up until recently, they would say to me, you were never ready really to be with anybody, because we've seen, some of your ex-girlfriends and you're just not going to be with anybody. We can just tell. They would say that to me. I'm like, I don't know. I can do it. And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, probably not. With all the complications and the commitments and the sacrifice you mentioned earlier, it's like, oh my God, being like, single, it's kind of great, right? A lot of it, right? But my time on Netflix has certainly been cut down, that's for sure. But yeah, so. I
think it's a really good lesson. A lot of people, not just women, don't understand that when somebody's not ready, they're just not ready. And there's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing that you can look like. There's nothing that you can be. When they're not ready, they're just not ready. And you have to move on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't, where I think a lot of people will try to force somebody into being ready. Well, if they just see this side of me, if they see me in this situation, if they see me in this light, and the bottom line is like, there's nothing you can do. If a person is not ready, move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's true, but it's right timing, right person. But the timing is you can't change the timing, you know, and that's true. I was ready for something more serious the last few years, but I will say that being open to it, I never met anyone like, you know, that is really like just blown away by. One of the issues I always had with like exes or even friendships, why ghosting I think is more prevalent than perhaps things people would think. One reason why it is prevalent, I guess, because who am I to tell someone why I don't want to date them or spend time with them?
I think you should.
Yeah, well.
I think because here's the thing. If we don't get feedback,
right.
we never get better, right? So there might be a guy here that's running around thinking that he's doing things amazing and it's great. And it's because nobody has ever said, hey.
But I mean from an ex. If an ex-girlfriend says, if an ex-boyfriend says to you, what did I do? Like, well, how can I be better? Like, why did you break up with me? Or like, why did it not work? Like,
I would totally welcome that conversation.
You would?
100. I've had most of my exes on this podcast.
And oh wow,
and we've talked through why we broke up and why we're better off that way and what they did and what I did. I think the people that you date ultimately get to know you in an intimate way that your friends just don't.
Yes.
You know, and so they're really the only people that can provide you with that sort of feedback that's needed. Like they have a unique insight that you can't get from your friends and your family and really anybody else that you're spending your time with. And I think they're uniquely qualified for that information.
You know, by the way, I've never gotten any critiques. I've always been, you're amazing in every way. Yeah, it's true.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
No ex has ever said, hey, you could do this better. You shouldn't have done that.
The only thing I can think about is that I value some of my friends so highly because they're family to me. They're not. A few of them are literally family. That they sometimes they feel that they're not the priority, and the friends or the kids, my god kids are. Which is like that's one, and that's fair. I mean, I've had that with Shar. Shar's my girlfriend, fiance, as well in different ways. But that's the one thing because I just have a lot of people that are family to me, and I don't want to. And I think that's one of the things I've always dreaded with a relationship is that I don't want to be with anybody who's like, you can't hang out with X or Y or Z, this person, you know, because
like controlling your circle.
Yeah, exactly. Like in other words, I have enough comfort in my friends. I know I'm a big believer that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
100%.
And so I know if someone was like they didn't get along with my friends or whatever, even the top 20, I'd be like, okay, there's something off, or this is something that's that might be sort of insurmountable. But yeah, that's the one thing I would say.
What if your friends didn't like the person, or one of your close friends didn't feel as strongly as you did?
Well, of my group of friends, like the 4 that I'm super super duper close to, like or 5, it would I guess it would matter. But I mean, I think that similarly to what you just said, you have intimacy with anyone, you're going to see stuff of their flaws, and some people just aren't good with new people the first time they meet, including me, by the way. But that would matter to me. But that would matter. But I think again now where I am in my life right now, I feel very very good about my instincts in people. Yeah. Not just a partner.
So how did we get from last year to this year? Now we're at engagement.
Yeah. So basically, I was just living my life. I had tried, different like dating services, and I thought about even hiring like a
should have hired me.
Right? Exactly. And you think about how much time you spend on those apps. I mean, it's better to outsource it because you waste time that you could be doing other things, including making yourself a more interesting person.
Right.
I was in New York just because I was there for work, and then I decided to stay on a Friday night, and I'm going to my friend's charity event on the Lower East Side in Chinatown. And I'm walking in front of this restaurant that's called La Cuckoo. And there's this girl who's walking, and a really cute girl, and she's looking at the place, and I go, this is La Cuckoo. She goes, I know. She's like, I've always wanted to go there. I go, yeah. I go, it's impossible he goes, yeah, I know. And then we started talking in a little bit, for maybe like 2 minutes or so. But, I was like talking to her.
She was by herself?
Yeah, by herself. And I go, I'll make you a deal. If I can get a table here for us to eat, then like you're going to marry me.
What was it that attracted you initially to make you start talking to her in the first place? Was it clearly looks, or was there like something else?
Well, looks was the beginning. That was it. But then the minute she opened her mouth and she smiled, and and her energy was just so it's surprising, right? Because like, as I'm sure you can attest to, as a woman in New York City walking around, you sort of go into you basically have on like noise blockers.
Right. Here's where I'm going. I'm going straight there. Nobody talk to me.
Yes.
And see ya.
yeah, exactly. I mean, cat calls, and it's you don't want to talk to anybody because it's on like high alert. And her energy was just so calm and so tranquil that it was a very easy. She's very open and just kind, which I mean, I am good with strangers. Like, I can be very, like at times be very, what's the word for it? Come across as non-threatening. I guess that's the word for it. Mm-hmm. That's only when I have my dogs, which again, I guess is another cliche. Get a dog. That helps you meet people. But so anyway, we talked, and she goes, and she laughed, and I went inside, and I told the guy, the maitre d', I go, hey, listen, if you can get me a tape, I just met my wife.
You said that?
But only if I get a table here tonight, like right now. Like literally, she's outside. Like I just met her.
Oh, so you were talking like right then and there eating. Got it.
Yeah, and I was hoping she wouldn't like walk away or whatever, or in many previous instances with women, run away. But and the guy said, and he made a table for us. So he created a table like kind of like on the side, and I go, okay, we're getting married, and she laughed, and we came inside, and she came inside, and we sat down, and so at that point, to me, it was just like it was nervous energy. It was that thrill of meeting someone, which is when you have it, is a wonderful. Oh
my God, that's the best feeling. Like the like stage is what I really love. Like when you just sort of like don't know where things are going and your heart sort of flutters. But when you said, I just met my wife, were you being funny or were you being serious about something you were really feeling?
It was based on a little bit of truth, for sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought about it. But I was very improv-y. So, but it was what I felt. So it was also had to be hysterical. And made the maitre d' laugh, and got us a table. Right. So it accomplished the goal, but it was really based on a strong element of hope. Right. Right. What's that? What was the Obama quote he had? His book, The Audacity of Hope. Yes. It was my audacity of hope. Yes. So we sat down at dinner, and you're sort of like, as I mentioned, like you don't want to be cynical. So I was just we were having a conversation, talking about our backgrounds, blah 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 blah, the other things, and where she went to school, like how I grew up, like where I lived, and then I didn't really answer that because I didn't want to say I didn't live in New York, and then after about 20 minutes, I was just so blown away by her and her background, and her energy, and what she just moved back from Peru to New York like weeks earlier, and was interviewing for a job in like in a lab or a hospital, and I said to her, and I said, hey, listen, I go, what I said earlier aside, like I don't want to freak you out, but like I'm going to marry you. I'm blown away by you, and I just never had this happen before. So
wow.
But again, that's timing.
So you had that movie moment.
I had that movie moment, and I'm like, look, I'm at the point in my life where, and I told her, where I lived. I told her, how old I was. I told her about the surrogate thing. I go, I want to have a kid in the next, 12 to 18 months. It's, and so, again, I don't mean to freak you out, but like, I don't know where you are, but if you're on anything similar to a timeline, I would love to just dive headfirst into this. Let's spend time together the next month or 2 or 3, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then, then that's fine too.
I really like the decisiveness in that moment. I'm a big believer in that you have to give your 100% of yourself to actually see whether something can work. Because I think what a lot of people end up doing is you're maybe dating a couple people, right? and there's no way you're giving 100% to that person.
Yeah.
Like at best you're giving 50.
Or being vulnerable.
Right. Exactly. At best you're giving 50. And so they're seeing 50% of you. Maybe they're giving you 50% as well because they're in the same situation. And that's what you're judging on, is that 50% versus who they really are at the core at 100%.
Right.
So I think the best method is, I really like you. Let's jump in. Let's give it 100. And if at that 100 it doesn't work, it wasn't meant to be. We're not for each other. But if we're really giving 100, like we'll truly see each other's true colors.
I mean, I think in a vacuum that makes perfect sense. However, how often do you meet someone where you're like, I'm gonna make the commitment to do 100% with this person?
It's rare. I mean, like, until I met my boyfriend, I had never said that.
So how long? When did you know with your boyfriend?
We met, and then we met in like December. We talked on the phone twice. We went out on one date. I happened to have to go travel for 8 weeks. We talked every single day for that 8 weeks, and then we moved in together as soon as I got back home. We moved in together.
One in-person date.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I think a big part of that too was being able to talk just purely without. I don't know. I think in New York, things can come and go pretty easily. But I think because I was traveling and my mind was just in a different space, I had like left my job and decided I was going to do my own thing. And like, I was just in a space where I was willing to be open and actually just not do the usual, like, so what's this? What's that? What's the checklist? Just truly get to know somebody and give it my full attention. And I think that's why we worked. Like, we both just gave it that time without judgment and just truly like getting to know each other. And so by the time I came home, I was like, let's do this.
You said you talk to Chris every day. With like my girl, it's only been 2.5 months. Mm-hmm. And the whole time we've been consistent about wanting to spend the rest of our lives together. There hasn't really been any, there have been some, natural things that happen in terms of disagreements and conflict, but healthy conflict. But we've spent every day together. Not every day, but probably of the 75 days, 65 of them we've been together. Wow. So that's intense.
Yeah.
So it's like you get to know somebody and it works. I mean, she, there are things that are there. Everything about her is 99% of things about her are amazing. And there's always maybe 1%,
right?
Which is pretty good. 1% is pretty good.
So how long after you guys had that first date did you move in together?
So after the first day, I had to go to Chicago for one of my best friend's birthdays. So I had to leave the next morning, and we talked every day. And then that following Friday, a week later, she flew down to Puerto Rico, and I had her. I offered to get her a hotel, and then she's like, no. We talked every day, FaceTime. Mm-hmm. I guess FaceTime is a little more intimate.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It definitely is actually, because she would FaceTime me like with her pimple cream on. Yeah. That's like a good sign. Yes. Right?
Yes. Being the real you, letting go of the trailer.
And that I wasn't like, running away, because, the whole girl getting her face on is like a real thing. It's a real thing.
Like, do you want the whole movie or just the trailer?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just the trailers when I'm all done up. So if you want the whole movie, here it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. So she came to Puerto Rico, and then we spent like, I think it was like 3 days together. She brought her Pomeranian down, who was a bit difficult at first. But yeah, it was great. And then I think that, I don't remember what happened. I think I went somewhere, and maybe she came with me. Actually, I'm sure it's in Cert City, but let's say it was LA for that wedding I mentioned. But yeah, there was lots of travel, and she would just come with me. And I have 2 dogs. She's wonderful with my dogs. She loves them as much as I do, which also, again, huge, very important thing. Her empathy in general for dogs and for people was something that resonated with me tremendously. But so yeah, it just worked. I mean, there was no like, she met my parents twice. I think as she learned about me more, she was more and more convinced. I said I loved her, after the second day.
Second date or second day?
Day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was after that dinner, the next day after the dinner.
Yeah. So that was on FaceTime.
Wow. How did she say it back? Or?
No. She didn't say it back to me until a few weeks later at my friend's charity event, which is a wonderful charity called Chick Mission.
Which I like that she didn't.
Yeah.
Because honestly, we don't all feel love at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when people have this immediate, they just say it right back because they just feel like they should or they have to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you really feel it right then at the same time, just exactly when he did? Or, so I like that she waited till she actually felt it.
But she told me like at a really bad time. She told me like at a charity event when I was like, I'm like on the advisory board. So I'm like being inundated with people talking to me. And then I'm getting her a drink as well. And I had other people talking to me, and then she looks at me, she goes, I love you. And I'm like, what?
I'm busy.
Yeah. I'm like, did you just say you love me? That's the first time you said it to me. And she goes, yeah. I'm like, this is supposed to happen like when we're like looking at the New York City skyline. Or like, you know what I mean? Or
you still wanted that movie.
yeah, exactly. So, but I guess it's more important, just like, by the way, we're talking about our ring, getting her the ring and whatever else. I said to her, the ring just means nothing. There's no correlation between the size of the ring and the quality of the relationship. I'm like, let's go to Costco, And she's open to that. She was open to that.
I don't want a ring.
Well, even better. you want to put that money towards a kid's tuition or
a house.
Or a house.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the point is that for me, I wasn't testing her, and I don't think we're at that point. I'm not really. I think maybe subconsciously we all test our partners. But with her, like when those tests, whatever they were, if they came up, I mean, it was always exactly like, almost to the T, like exactly things that I would react and deal with, like whether it's my dad's craziness or my own craziness or my 15-year-old handsome boy pooping on the floor, when we're right about to leave for, a gala.
Right.
And how she handles it. Like it's nothing but smiles. And it's like, it's a special kind of person. She's very, very at peace with herself, which I mean that's aspirational.
So how did your family like her, and what did they think of everything moving so fast?
Yeah, everyone's on high alert, right? Because this is the definition of midlife crisis. Like you left New York City after 20 years. You live in Puerto Rico on an island. You have you're traveling a lot. Like all of a sudden, like you're getting married to some girl you just met. Like what's going on with you? Are you okay? It's a very common, and by the way, I think a very fair response.
Right.
So their response was very much like that.
Especially if you haven't done something like this in the past.
Yeah. And anything, I said to my parents, I go, this should give me more credibility because I've never done it before. Because I've never told you that this is someone that I'm going to be with. Like, because I know for certain is going to be the girl who's going to be like the mother of my children and my life partner and whatever else you want to insert there. So I go, when you meet her, like you'll understand, like, whatever else. They had some religious, concerns. And like education, which is always the thing with parents. What's your education? And right. She's smarter than I am. I mean, I think she's smarter than me in a lot of ways. I'll put it that way. But which is, again, that's the whole like mixing and matching thing, right? And so, and then they met her, and it's very important to all of us when our spouses or when our partners meet our parents and our friends. You're super nervous. So, we had a week where she met the entire family all at once, and she was, magical. And my dad said 3 or 4 awkward things. Which
Good
was,
test, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that, again, that's anybody's parents, especially if they're older. When you're older, you kind of can say whatever you want. Right. So, and then so it was very easy, and they all kind of got it, and even like the last night, my mom brought out saris and like jewelry for her to look at for the wedding.
When's the wedding?
We're gonna have 2. There's gonna be a Muslim wedding in March, in May in Maryland, and then the other one will be we're gonna have a larger one in Peru, actually in July.
Wow.
So that'll be like a traditional like 3-day wedding or something like that. That's like she lives right by like the Mayan ruins.
Oh, nice.
Machu Picchu.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it'll be, and there's no visa required. So, it's going to be a lot of people which will be wonderful because I've like...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you
be good.
Have you met her family?
No. I'm meeting her mother in a few weeks. It's a big thing. I mean, because there is a bit of an, any mother or father is going to be protective of their daughter. So I've been very clear with her from the outset that, look, you're not my accessory. Like there's lots of people who have that type of relationship. I've had plenty of, that's easy to find that. Like, I don't want you to be beside me. I want you to be in front of me, like on a pedestal. And I want you to be the best version of yourself. Like, this isn't about like taking care of me or the dogs or being a mom. Like, you have to be happy and challenged both intellectually and spiritually, and like feel like you're growing. So I'm very sensitive like that with her, which I think because I'm older than her, it's...
What's the age difference?
21 years.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad said, he says, how old is she? And how old are you? I'm like, Dad, you know how old I am. He goes, in 10 years, you're not going to be able to satisfy her.
Dad keeps it real.
And he goes, you're going to be her sugar daddy. I'm like, that's a lot of marriages, right? I mean, there's a whole spectrum of this whole sugar daddy thing. And I'm saying that with a tongue in my cheek, but, I think that, there's a lot of ways to handle that age difference. I'm not going to throw out the terms that she's an old soul and whatever else, but we have a lot of very similar things that make us happy. And I think that honestly, her being South American is a big part of that. And she didn't come to America until she was 16. She's very much has like the mentality of like, what to her is important. And when I met her, she didn't know who Coldplay was, which again, maybe that's an age thing actually, more than a South American thing. I think about it. But
Coldplay's they're on the fence. They're on the fence.
Right.
Do you sort of worry about just long term the age difference?
No, I don't actually. I'm very much a fatalist, so I think everything's already been written down, and I think if anything, I'm fairly good about keeping myself in shape and being sort of aware of that. And moderation is really a key thing to a lot of things I do, including podcasts. But I think that. It's a nice motivator, and I think that her age is trumped by the difference in age. The risk or the potential risk of that is more than trumpeted by her wisdom, her kindness, her empathy, her sense of peace and happiness with herself, and her love for me and my dogs and my family, and her being grounded, which is such a huge thing. Being, wanting to actually help other people and be aware of that, we're just lucky we're here, right? There's a 1 in 7 chance of being born in the right country.
Right.
Like statistically, like my parents moved there from Pakistan. If I was still in Pakistan, I'd be like selling used scooters to like tourists. My parents came to the country and like they gave me the tools and the support to have an education, which is why I've told our common friends that it's our responsibility to have kids. Like it's if not, we're literally spitting in the faces of our grandparents and our parents. And like,
what if you don't want kids? Like, what if kids is just not for you?
I think that if you're the only child, it's a responsibility thing. It's, again, depending on who you are.
Right.
Like my sister is a curator for the Baltimore Museum of Art, and she takes her kids to like these donors' homes, right? And these huge homes, right? Very wealthy people who give money, who are wonderful people, very charitable. It's tax deductible, but whatever. And she'll tell her kids, she goes, these people's homes that we're in, they've been here for 5, 6, 7, 8 generations. Like your grandparents, i.e. my parents, right, moved here with no money. And then like now we're here, and it's true. Like when I was trying to get a job, I had no guidance. I didn't know anybody.
Right.
But if you're a generation and you're here, then you have those
connections, and you've built the wealth.
And this is a huge thing in the African American community too, right? It's a very pervasive thing that has, order of magnitude impacts on society in the circles of poverty. Not to go into that whole trail of thought, but like It's a real thing. So I think like it's your responsibility, I think, to maintain that lineage because your parents went through something, and to give your, the whole cliche about giving your kids a better version of life and access to opportunity. So I have a very strong feeling about that.
How many kids do you want?
It'll be one. Well, however much the gods or God, in my fiance's case, she's Catholic, decide. But I think 1, 2, or 3. But I want to do quick. I'm ready for it. I think I am, and she is too. But again, that's timing for her too. I mean, if she was at a different phase in her life, it might have made every sense in the world for her to want to be with me. But she's like, I can't have kids right now. I have to focus on my career, or I have the book I have to write, or I have to do these 3 or 4 things. And and I'll see you in another life.
So the timing all worked out exactly the way it needed to for the both
yeah.
of you. And
I mean, again, you never know. And I've said this to her as well. I go, baby, like, it doesn't matter whether or not we have kids. She's like, what do you mean? You don't want to have kids now? I go, no. That's not what I said. I said, I don't know what fate has in store for us, but if we don't have kids, we have each other, and it's all it's true. But you can't get caught up in these things because you put too much attachment and value to it, and ultimately, that's not going to be the real.
Then you start putting stress on it and fear, and it makes it harder to do
fear,
the things you want because you're thinking about them on such a level.
Yes, but I also think that it is ultimately all that matters is what you have with your partner.
It's actually great that you're getting married later in life because you've had the opportunity to sort of see the full gamut, right? So people that are newly in love, people that have been married with kids and divorced, like the whole thing. So what have they said what do you need to avoid now, or what advice have they given you?
So for a living, I'm very lucky. I basically talk to my friends all day. And I've asked a lot of them, like, what is one thing that you would say to yourself that you wish you had talked about with your wife before you got married that you didn't, right? And or that you talked about with your husband. I'm not going to remember all the answers, but one of them was don't get married. But others were talk about financial situations, what kind of lifestyle they expect. Mm-hmm. Talk about religion, talk about kids, talk about where you want to live. Where you want, how much family relationships you want to, how much you want to see your family, if that's going to be impactful for you. Talk about how you want to raise the kids, whether it's openly. The financial one is probably one of the most difficult. Prenup is something as well. That's something that I have been, very much have seen.
Would you get a prenup? Are you getting a prenup?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, prenups can mean a lot of different things, right? There's a whole spectrum there, which I had no fucking idea. We talked about that on our fifth date. Mm-hmm. But anyway, these are things that are uncomfortable, right? They're very uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean, for me, even talking to you about it, I can see you stiffened up too. It's like, what? It's not just in a Kanye song? Yeah. It's not just
we
Kanye.
want prenup.
Yeah, exactly. I think that having the experience and talking about your friends' relationships and seeing your friends' relationships, sometimes intimately, you become sensitive to certain things that are important to you. And as you get older, you prioritize things that perhaps weren't important to you 10 years earlier, but are now. So,
what's important to you now that wasn't 10 years ago?
Empathy, being grounded, being happy, being naturally happy, being passionate about things. Every moment, there's that Confucius quote. Is it Confucius? I think it was Confucius. Every man has two lives. The second one begins when he realizes he only has one. Wow. Right. So these are things that you try and teach yourself, and it's hard to remind yourself. But we all have limited times. It's that Drake YOLO thing. Those things are really true, right? So it's someone who lives their life that way is makes every day that you're with them. I think partners in general are meant to be a little bit aspirational for the other half, and I had that with her. I think she has that with me. I'm curious how she would compare my trailer to my movie. Maybe that's a conversation for another time. I'm
gonna get her on the post-wedding podcast.
yeah, exactly. When the honeymoon is officially over. In my life in general, and I've told her this, about many things, I want to maximize the probability of a positive outcome. That's my thing in general. How I think about life, whether that's acute events that happen to me, when I'm walking, Lou, and he poops and I don't have a bag. I'm okay, how do I deal with this? Let's not get caught up in how he's pooping and there's no bags, there's no newspapers or whatever. How am I going to deal with this? Whatever. And it's an interesting way to sort of, you can pull yourself out of that situation. But I think about that a lot. And when it comes to being with someone, the other wedding advice I got was also along the lines of, and this is important, and I alluded to this earlier, help her be the best version of herself.
Because we're all our own individual people before we come into a partnership. So that still has to be maintained,
Right. And she's been wonderful with that. She's been super how do I say, especially for her age, she's been super aware of and respectful of the fact that I had a life before her, and she's walking into people that she's meeting for the first time that are family to me. You know, that people I've known, like my goddaughter's 20 years old. I mean, she's a woman now.
Right.
I've known she was 5 years old. You know, to me, she's a little kid. You know, but we're very close. I mean, I'm basically like her second dad. So, but she's been seamless with those things, and that's not easy.
So what do you think has been the biggest shift that you've had to make now that you're in a relationship versus being single for, you know, a good chunk of your life?
The biggest shift for me has been saying we. That's a big thing.
Yeah, now you're a we, not an I.
Yeah. So there's a great Larry David episode. I don't know if you watched Larry David. But,
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm, where him and his wife at the time, Cheryl, are having dinner with this other couple, and the dinner ends at a fancy restaurant, and the dinner ends, and the other couple, the husband, pays for the dinner. The couple's name is like, it's Larry and Cheryl, and the couple's name is like Dan and Liz, and they pay the check, and then Larry goes, "Thank you, Dan, for dinner. It was amazing. Thank you so much, really." And the wife's looking at Liz, Dan's wife, is looking at Larry like, and Larry's like, "What? He's like, are you going to thank me?" He's like, "No, I don't think so. I mean, wait, Dan, you paid for this, right?" So yeah, he paid for it. It's not
ours.
Yeah. So I don't need I'm thanking him. And it was this huge, amazing scene because they were so offended. But that's a real thing, right? Like you have to so the whole we thing is and she's never ever said anything to me either way. But like I try and be, because to me it's about respect, right?
Right.
And like I don't, it's very important that she feels that I view her as like that we're together. Otherwise, it's not a good foundation. I mean, it really isn't.
There was this point, I think, in my 20s where I just hated we people. Like, I hated the people that were like, we can't come. We got to do this. We're doing this. I'm like, you're each people. But now being in this type of relationship and being this committed, I'm like, oh my God, I'm a we person. I'm always saying we, but you should. It is we. Like everything in your life does concern your partner. You know, from simple things to more complex decisions. Like if it is a true partnership, everything really is we have to think about that. We will see.
Yeah, and she's been great about that. Like she's told me, like, pulled me aside and said, "Listen, we're partners. I'm here for you. Like I'm here to." And she's so like, again, these are things that like whether it's because of like fear or whether because of like just not being able to really even realize that's what a partnership really is. She's explicitly saying it to me, and I'm like, oh wow, like that's really how these things work. Again, the concept of the whole marriage institution is something that I don't necessarily believe in. But when you meet someone like her, for me at least, like the risk of like, I'm not going to meet anyone like her ever again. Right. So the only way to keep her is to like, either do what is that Samuel L. Jackson movie where you chain that girl to the radiator? What's that, Black Snake Moan? Like
I didn't see that.
Whatever,
one.
Something like that. Anyway, chain like some girl to a radiator. Like I'm not going to do that. I don't have a radiator. I live in Puerto Rico, so there's no radiator. Chain or two, but like that's not a long-term solution. So the other way to do it is like to be like super empathic and then make sure that she knows she's my number one and that it's us together. And yeah, it's been really, really.
You never actually have to control somebody when you show them that they're supported and secure and you love them. You know, that will keep them anywhere you need them to be. But yeah, that's the best way to go about it. It's never about control, but if you know I'm here for you always, you're going to stay. Yeah,
it's that Sting song. If you love somebody, set them free.
Mm-hmm. So all of this has moved pretty fast for you guys. Yeah. Have there been any like surprising discoveries or things that you're like, oh, I didn't expect that quite?
There are things that women do that, like, as a man who hasn't really lived with a woman, you don't really know.
You just see the movie magic, not all
it's
the
like
behind
the
scenes.
Clinton thing, don't ask, don't tell, like whatever. Like we have a good separation of church and state in terms of the bathroom stuff, but like
do you guys share a bathroom?
We kind of do. I mean, I have like multiple bathrooms, so I kind of use one more than she does. Mm-hmm. Much more, but for the most part, I think we have separate. It's kind of a hybrid, if you will.
Right.
I want to have separate beds. I told her. I said, I think that we should have separate beds, master bedrooms, and we can opt in to being with the same bed as each other if we want. There's no pressure to do it. Mm-hmm. You can do it. But she didn't want to do that. She's like, no.
Yeah, I think the bed thing is, that's really what separates you from anybody on the street. You know what I mean? Like who you sleep in the bed with. Now, why were you thinking about separate, like having the option of separate beds or separate master bedrooms initially?
Because I sleep I mean, I'm older, so I'm set in my ways, but I'm just like, I know I sleep better. I know I sleep great on my own, you know? And I just like the whole idea of having the option and having separation of the bathrooms, separation of everything else. And you can still sleep in the same bed all the time, but you still have your bed or I have my bed. Mm-hmm. And there's no like, you know, I think that, listen, I mean, I'm sure that you're aware of this stuff as much as I am, but like, you know, if you look at like, what's the word? You know, like the history of humans on this earth, we weren't raised to be like monogamous.
Right.
Like women.
I just did an episode with a throuple.
Yeah.
And that was his whole premise was this is just not natural for us.
Yeah. Like any anthropology, like you look at like tribes back in, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they would have women, even when they were pregnant, they would have sex with multiple men.
And that was so like everybody would take care of the kid because nobody knew who the
well,
true
that was
dad
the result, exactly.
Yeah.
But also the idea was that if you have sex with multiple men, you'll get all their best characteristics.
Yep.
So it's like a thing. It's purely because of the indoctrination of religion, which again is a whole other issue. And to me, it's all about like controlling things to the church or the mosque or the synagogue, whatever else. So I think a lot of these things can be in some ways antiquated, and I don't fall into convention. I try not to. I mean, are there things that I fall into convention about? Like asking for permission for everything from my girlfriend? Yes. That's things you have to do, clearly. But I think other things are like, you know, if you want to just try and push the boundaries and just think about it. Now, clearly, she's not into this, as I said. It's not happening.
So what are you most looking forward to for the future and what you guys have in store?
Again, it's going to sound like an Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore movie. But like, I look forward to every day. I mean, like, I say this to her often. Like, I get so happy because I just think about every day with the rest of my life with her. Like, the whole like kid thing, managing this life and the volatility of like things that are bound to happen, whether it's with my parents or dogs or life in general. Like, she's just a very, very like, you know, grounded, you know, kind person who's one of her biggest role. I mean, one of her biggest roles is just to make me, you know, the best version of myself. And I've never really felt that way about anybody, or more importantly, I've had other people perhaps who wanted to be that for me, but they weren't the right person, I think. And for her, I think she's able to engage me on every level that is, you know, I don't know. I mean, everything's relative, but it's magical. I guess that's a way of looking at it. It's never happened to me before. So, yeah, it's like every moment with her. So,
aww.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Congratulations. Congratulations on actually doing the movie.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's right. Her trailer was actually, I guess it was about equal. It was no, it couldn't have been equal, but her movie's better than her trailer. Right.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight and for sharing your story. And
of course. I'm
totally excited for this wedding. And like I think you've made people believe again that, you know, the movie can happen.
It can happen. It starts from within, which again is another cliche, but like it's better to wait. Like my mom thought I was gay for 10 years, right? A lot of my friends like thought, oh, you're not gay. That was like a big thing. Like being gay is more than okay.
Right.
But it's like, they didn't even know that like, it's better to wait, you know. But if you're waiting and it's not happening, then at some point you have to. It's why I left New York, right? The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
That's the Einstein thing I mentioned earlier. But like, I left New York, and like, the irony is, of course, I met a girl who lives in New York.
And I mean, I think the big thing that you said there is looking within yourself, you know?
Yeah. And getting feedback, I guess, from your partners or exes can be good, which I didn't really believe in, but you watch.
I'm gonna send you some of the old podcasts. It's great stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, thanks again.
My pleasure.
And thank you guys so much for listening today. And please reach out to me at Tanisha Wood on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and let me know what you think of tonight's show. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.